Man, let me tell you something that completely surprised me when I first heard about it during Ramadan. I was sitting there talking to a couple of brothers, and they mentioned something called itikaf. Now, I had never heard that word before, so you know me, I stopped them right there. I said, hold on, what is that? And one of them looked at me and said, Steve, it's when people spend the last 10 days of Ramadan staying in a mosque, completely dedicated to worship. I said, wait a minute, you mean to tell me people actually leave their homes, their beds, their routines, and stay in the mosque for 10 straight days? He said, yes. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. My first reaction was shock, because in the world we live in today, people can barely put their phone down for 10 minutes. You telling me somebody is going to step away from their entire daily life for 10 days? No work distractions, no social media scrolling, no running around chasing this and that, just staying in a mosque. Man, that caught my attention immediately. So I asked him, why would someone do that? And the answer they gave me started opening my mind. They said the last 10 days of Ramadan are considered the most spiritually powerful days of the entire month. There's a night in those last 10 days called Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, which is believed to be better than 1,000 months. Now, when I heard that, I leaned back for a second, because we're talking about a night that carries the reward of more than 80 years of worship. That's a lifetime. And I started thinking, okay, now this makes a little more sense. Because if you believe there's a moment like that hidden within those 10 days, then isolating yourself to focus on worship starts to feel like a serious investment. But what really got me was the concept of stepping away from the world completely. See, itikaf isn't just about going to the mosque for a couple of hours. It's about staying there, sleeping there, eating there, spending your time in prayer, reading Quran, making supplication, reflecting on your life. For 10 days, your entire routine changes. And I thought to myself, man, do you know how hard that would be for most people today? Because we're used to constant stimulation. Phones, notifications, conversations, entertainment. We wake up and the first thing we reach for is our device. We go through the day surrounded by noise. Even when we're resting, we're still consuming something. Videos, music, messages. Silence has become uncomfortable for a lot of people, but itikaf flips that completely. It takes you out of that environment and places you in a space where the focus is entirely different. No distractions pulling your attention every few minutes. No outside noise competing for your mind. Just you, your thoughts, and your relationship with God. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something powerful. Most people never get the chance to step away from their lives long enough to really reflect. We're always moving, always chasing something, always reacting to the next thing in front of us. But itikaf creates a pause, a deep pause, 10 days where a person can actually sit with themselves and ask real questions. Where am I in life? What kind of person am I becoming? What do I need to fix? What do I need to let go of? And let me tell you something, those are not easy questions to face. But that's exactly why itikaf caught my attention the way it did. Because it's not just about being alone in a mosque. It's about stepping away from the noise of the world long enough to hear your own soul again. And once I started hearing what people actually experienced during those 10 days, man, that's when it really started getting deep. Now, once I understood what itikaf actually is, I had to ask the next question. I said, all right, but what does it really feel like to be in there for 10 days? Because it's one thing to understand the idea, but it's another thing to actually live it. And the way they described it to me, man, it painted a whole different picture in my mind. They said, the first couple of days are the hardest. And that made perfect sense to me right away. Because think about it. You've just stepped out of your normal life. No daily routine, no constant phone use, no usual distractions. You're sleeping in the mosque, waking up in the mosque, spending your entire day in the same space. Your body and your mind are not used to that kind of stillness. One of the brothers told me, he said, Steve, the first day your mind is still running outside. And when he said that, I understood exactly what he meant. Because even when your body is physically in one place, your mind can still be somewhere else. Thinking about work, thinking about messages, thinking about things you left behind. That's how we are as people. We carry our distractions with us. But then he said something interesting. He said after a couple of days, something starts to shift. Your mind begins to slow down. Now that right there caught my attention. Because in today's world, a quiet mind is rare. We got so much noise coming at us every single day that most people don't even know what it feels like to have mental silence. There's always something playing in the background. Thoughts, worries, plans, stress. But do an itikaf when you remove all those external distractions. Your mind doesn't have anywhere to run anymore. So eventually, it settles. And when it settles, that's when the real experience begins. They describe waking up in the mosque before dawn, that soft stillness in the air. People quietly preparing for prayer. No rushing, no chaos, just a calm rhythm to everything. Then the prayer happens, and afterward people sit quietly. Some reading Quran, some making duha, some just reflecting. Hours pass like that, but it doesn't feel heavy. It feels different. It feels intentional. And I remember one brother telling me something that really stuck. He said, Steve, when you in itikaf, time feels different. Now, that might sound strange at first, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Because outside in the world, time always feels rushed. There's always something you have to do next. But inside the mosque during those 10 days, you're not chasing time anymore. You're using it. That's a big difference. Instead of running from one task to another, you're sitting with purpose. You're reading, reflecting, praying, thinking about your life. And when a person spends hours like that every day, their thoughts start going deeper than usual. You're not just thinking about surface-level stuff anymore. You start thinking about your character, your habits, your relationship with God. And here's the part that really got me. One brother said, after a few days, you actually don't miss the outside world as much as you thought you would. Now hold on. That right there is powerful. Because most people believe they can't function without their daily distractions. They think they need constant stimulation to feel normal. But itikaf shows you something different. It shows you that when you step away from all that noise, there's actually peace waiting on the other side. Not boredom. Peace. And that's when I realized something deeper about this whole experience. Itikaf isn't just about being in the mosque. It's about detoxing your mind from the constant distractions of life. It's about creating space where your thoughts can finally settle, where your heart can finally breathe, where your focus can return to something meaningful. And once I started understanding that part of it, I knew there had to be something even more powerful happening during those 10 days. Because when a person spends that much time alone with their thoughts and their creator, something inside them is bound to change. And this is where it really started getting deep for me. Because once you understand the quiet, once you understand how the mind starts slowing down during itikaf, the next question is, what actually happens to a person on the inside? And the way they explained that part to me, man, that's what really made me stop and think. They said after a few days, when the noise fades, and your mind settles, you start facing yourself in a way you probably haven't in a long time. Now let me explain that. See, most people go through life staying busy on purpose. Not always because they have to be, but because being busy keeps you from thinking too much. It keeps you from confronting certain things about yourself. Your habits, your mistakes, your regrets, the things you've been putting off fixing. As long as you stay distracted, you don't have to deal with those thoughts. But in itikaf, you can't run from them anymore. There's no constant entertainment, no endless scrolling, no noise to drown out your thoughts. It's just you, sitting there in that quiet space, day after day. And eventually, those deeper thoughts start rising to the surface. One brother told me something that really stuck with me. He said, Steve, during itikaf, you start having conversations with yourself you've been avoiding. And when he said that, I felt that. Because everybody has things they avoid thinking about, things they know they need to fix, but they keep pushing to the side because life is too busy. But when you're sitting in that mosque for hours, reflecting, praying, reading, those thoughts don't stay buried. They come up. You start thinking about your past, the things you did right, the things you wish you could do differently, the people you may have hurt, the opportunities you missed, the habits you know aren't good for you. And at first, that can feel uncomfortable. Because facing yourself honestly is not easy. But here's the powerful part. That discomfort is where the transformation begins. Because once a person becomes aware of those things, they can start changing them. They start making sincere prayers, asking God for forgiveness, asking for guidance, asking for strength to become better. And when those prayers come from a place of real reflection, they hit differently. It's not just words anymore. It's real. And I remember one brother describing a moment that really moved me. He said there are times during itikaf when people are sitting quietly, making dua, and emotions just come out of nowhere. People start tearing up, not because anyone is watching, not because they're trying to show anything, but because for the first time in a long time, they're being completely honest with themselves and with God. That kind of moment changes you, because when a person reaches that level of sincerity where they drop all the masks, all the excuses, all the distractions, that's when real growth happens. And it's not just about fixing mistakes, it's also about rediscovering purpose. Because in that quiet space, away from the noise of the world, people start asking bigger questions. Why am I here? What kind of person do I want to be? What really matters in my life? And when you spend days reflecting on those questions, your priorities start shifting. Things that used to feel important don't feel as important anymore. Things you used to ignore suddenly feel meaningful. And that's when I realized something powerful. Itikaf isn't just isolation, it's realignment. It's a chance for a person to step away from everything that's been pulling them in different directions and reconnect with what actually matters. And when someone goes through that kind of deep reflection for 10 straight days, you already know they're not coming out the same person they were when they walked in. And once I understood that, the final piece became clear to me. Because what happens when those 10 days are over, that's what really shows the true impact of itikaf. And when those 10 days finally come to an end, that's when you really see what itikaf was all about. Because it's one thing to go into the mosque, step away from the world, spend your time in prayer and reflection, but the real question is, who are you when you walk back out? And the way it was described to me, man, that's what really brought everything together. They say when people leave itikaf, they don't just walk out like it was some temporary experience. They walk out carrying something with them, a different mindset, a different level of awareness, a different kind of calm that wasn't there before. Now think about that for a second. You just spent 10 days away from distractions, 10 days reflecting on your life, 10 days praying, asking for forgiveness, thinking about your purpose. That kind of experience doesn't just disappear overnight, it leaves a mark on you. One brother explained it in a way that really stuck with me. He says, Steve, when you come out of itikaf, you see the world differently. And I thought about that for a moment. Because when you've been in a quiet, focused environment for that long, stepping back into the noise of everyday life feels different. The same phone that used to feel normal now feels overwhelming. The same constant scrolling doesn't feel as necessary. The same distractions that once pulled your attention don't have the same grip on you anymore. Because for 10 days you experience what life feels like without all that noise. And that contrast opens your eyes. You start realizing how much time you were giving to things that don't really matter. How much energy was being spent on distractions that don't actually bring peace. And more importantly, you realize how powerful it felt to be connected, truly connected to God without interruptions. And here's the part that really impressed me. People don't just come out of itikaf saying, that was nice. They come out saying, I don't want to lose this feeling. That's powerful. Because it means those 10 days gave them something real, something meaningful enough that they want to hold on to it even when they go back to their normal lives. And that's where the real challenge begins, because it's easy to feel connected when you're in the mosque all day. It's easy to stay focused when you're surrounded by people who are doing the same thing. But when you step back into the real world, work, responsibilities, distractions, that's when you have to protect what you gained. And the brothers told me that's exactly what people try to do after itikaf. They try to hold on to the habits they built. Maybe they keep praying more consistently. Maybe they spend a little more time reflecting each day. Maybe they become more mindful of their actions, more patient, more aware of how they treat others. They don't expect to stay perfect, but they try to stay better. And that right there is the real impact of itikaf. It's not about being perfect for 10 days. It's about becoming better for the rest of your life. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something that really hit me. In a world where people are constantly running, constantly distracted, constantly pulled in every direction, itikaf is like a reset button. A chance to step away, a chance to reflect, a chance to reconnect. And when someone truly takes advantage of that opportunity, those 10 days can do something that years of routine life sometimes can't. They can wake a person up. And once you've experienced that kind of awakening, that clarity, that connection, that peace, you don't forget it. You carry it with you. And that's why something that sounds so simple on the surface, 10 days in a mosque, can end up being one of the most life-changing experiences a person ever goes through.